Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Kottabos Space Program, where today we are having a look at the ground construction mod, which is being made by forum user Alista. And what this glorious little piece of work looks to add into the game is the ability for you to build any vessel directly on the surface of a planet by using a do-it-yourself kit, and I find that quite interesting, though some of you may already be wondering, why do we need another construction mod when we already have the extraplanetary launch pads mod? And it's a fair question, indeed one that I asked myself when I first saw this pop up on the forums. But I have to tell you guys, the more I looked into this mod and the more I played around with it myself, the more and more I found interesting aspects to it that, in my opinion, makes for a good alternative to extraplanetary launch pads for any of you out there that might be looking for it, as there are certain aspects of ground construction which are easier than extraplanetary launch pads, some that are a little bit more difficult, and others which are just plain different. And all of those combined makes for, again, a good alternative, or indeed just, a nice change of pace for anyone who's maybe out there who's a little bit bored of doing the same old thing. So let's just jump right on into the spaceplane hangar and have a look at the currently 3 parts that are in this mod, and then we'll talk about how you can use them to actually make this whole thing work. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about here is the mobile workshop. Much like with extraplanetary launch pads, you do have to have some form of workshop to actually build the parts together and, make the ship. And in this mod, we are given this gigantic freaking rover body in the form of the mobile workshop. The thing is gargantuan, and honestly, I don't care for the look of it much. You guys know me, I'm a stock alike guy, and this is definitely not stock alike. But thankfully, you'll notice that in other command pods, such as the Mark II inline cockpit, we have this little ground workshop efficiency here. Basically, every command pod in the game can be used as a workshop. In each different command pod will have a different efficiency depending on its size, the number of seats, how much room the Kerbal will have inside to put together parts in, etc., all combining to be different types of efficiencies. So for instance, this one is 12.68 efficiency, whereas the Mark I lander can is 10.44, and of course, whereas the mobile workshop, I believe, has a 100% efficiency. Now, of course, that efficiency can change by how many engineers you have inside. Of course, you are going to need, again, just like in extraplanetary launch pad, engineers to actually do the building, which I've actually already sent all of my engineers out, and indeed there's none in the astronaut complex to throw in there for demonstration's sake, just my luck. But yes, the more seats you have filled up with engineers, the better that efficiency is going to be. And indeed, if you only fill up half of, say, this workshop with engineers and the other half with pilots or scientists, that efficiency that we have of 100% is actually going to go down. To have an effective workshop, you're going to want it to be all engineers, which can be tricky for your mission, but depending on how you build your base, you'll probably be fine. Now, this thing overall, besides being a workshop, is a functioning command pod and built to be a rover body. It's got these nice little bits down here for attaching wheels, and it is necessary to have at least 1 Kerbal in it, has a maximum of 8 Kerbals it can hold inside, and of course has the standard stuff of a transmitter, hold on, going down further, the crew report, electric charge, though, man, it holds a lot of electric charge at 8,000, but some of the interesting bits it has is, if we go back up here, it has a generator, which is always on, so this thing should never really run out of electricity. And then if we go down here, we have a tank manager, which currently is set to metals, liquid fuel, and oxidizer. But if you do want to switch this stuff up, you can actually change your tanks that are holding these 3 materials. Now you do that by hitting this edit tank button here, which will open up a very familiar interface. If you've been watching my mod series, you'll notice that this is an identical interface to the configurable containers mod, which if you want instructions on how to use this, go check out that video to understand what all this is. And it's not too surprising that we have this interface, considering configurable containers is another mod made by Alista. So he's basically just thrown this in as well to be able to configure these tanks to different materials if you so desire, which is quite nice to have. Now, you know me, I'm a sucker for animations, and we do have an unfold ladder thing, which there's a ladder there and 2 more on both of these sides, and they do go up and down quite nicely. I do always enjoy that. And with that, we also have 3 different doors for your Kerbals to go in and out of. Overall, a very, very cool little command pod, though, maybe the aesthetic doesn't match you. Oh, and I also should point out, the thing is massive. If we take a Mark 1 command pod, for instance, bam! Look at how tiny it is compared to this thing. It's ginormous, but fun. Now the next part we're going to have a look at here is the space crane. This doesn't actually have anything to do with the actual building of the ship, but is a tool for you to move the DIY containers that you have to send along with your rest of your construction crew to actually build things. And so it makes it easier for you to put stuff in place, and that is actually a very useful tool. If we pop this space crane on there, it's quite an interesting little piece. It is essentially a fully functioning ship on its own. It is an unmanned command pod, has a typical data transmitter, it has its own built-in decoupler, it has RCS, reaction wheel, it does have its own fuel cell to turn liquid fuel and oxidizer into electricity if need be, SAS, and again, that tank manager if you would like to change its resources, and finally 2000 electric charge. Now you'll also notice if we just kind of pop in here, it does have little attachment points on the bottom of each of these arms for you to actually attach engines to, as well as an attachment point on the top for you to add, say, I don't know, a parachute or something. And again, it's just an interesting tool for moving bits and pieces of your base around, or of course, moving the all-important DIY kit container into its final resting place. And I also do want to point out one really cool aspect of it. Depending on the size of what you want to carry, you can actually change this thing. You can scale it by using this tool right here, and it can go as small as 0.5, go back up to its 1 level, which is right there, and can go all the way up to, oh god, here we go, 10. That is how big this thing can get, if you so desire. So it is, it's an interesting part, and I'm sure you guys will find plenty of use for it. And notice, though, when we do change it, the amount of resources that this thing does have does change. So at its base level, you've got 2000 electric charge, 670 liquid fuel, 819 oxidizer, and 588 monopropellant. But if we go up to 10, oh my, all of those are in the tens of thousands. Actually, some of them, actually all of them are in the hundreds of thousands. Wow, that is a lot. But that is for you to play around and have fun with if you so desire. And again, just a useful tool for moving objects around. Now, the last thing is the DIY kit container. And this is probably the biggest difference between this mod and extraplanetary launch pads. In extraplanetary launch pads, you have your base set up on another planet with all your resource gathering tools, and then you have your workshop, and from there, you build your ship. Now in this mod, it's the same deal. You gotta have a base, you gotta have the mobile workshop for all of your resources and building needs, but then you have to also send this kit into location, as this kit includes, according to the mod maker here, all of the needed tools, blueprints, and high-tech components to build the vessel off-world. Basically, the idea behind this and the difference with extraplanetary launch pads is that this assumes that off-world you don't have the ability to build high-tech components, whereas extraplanetary launch pad does. I think that's a good way to think about it. So you're still having to send some materials to your final location where you're going to build it from here at the Kerbal Space Center. So that is an interesting thing. Now, the actual model isn't the most interesting thing in the world. Handle with care, of course. It does have the fun little arrows pointing upward, so that is meant to be the up direction for this. And also notice it does tell you there is a decoupler. It does have one built into the top there, which is very convenient. As you can see here, ejection force of 10. And how you use this thing is what you have to do is, again, another big difference between this and extraplanetary launch pads. You have to decide what you're building now. In extraplanetary launch pad, you decide when you build it. Here, I have to actually right-click this and select vessel. And that's going to open up our craft selection thing here, and we can choose crafts from either the VAB or the spaceplane hangar, and then we select them and load it into the container. And you'll notice the container just changed size. Depending on how large the thing is you want to build and how many parts it's going to take to build it, this will change. So for an Ares 3A, the container got smaller. But if we say go to the VAB and go to the Aero Equus and load that, it's going to be bigger. And that's just the big difference between the two, so this is always gonna be different depending on what you launch. And you can see we have the now kit mass of this thing is 14.1 tons. The cost is gonna be 14,762.7 funds. And you have the how much time it's gonna take to work, the resources, etc. So a very, very cool. I do like that this changes size and shape depending on what you're sending. And again, you have to choose what you're gonna build here in the spaceplane hangar or in the VAB, depending on where you're sending it from. Now that is the basics of how it works. So let's actually jump out here and go to the runway where I have everything set up for us to actually build something. Now we'll select a plane because we're gonna build ourselves an Ares 3A on the runway. So what we have is, just imagine that we've landed here with our lovely little space crane, which has been rescaled down to the 0.5 size. And yeah, just imagine we landed it here, and now we need to clear this thing away. So what you do is decouple it. Bam, there we go. Throttle up your engines a little. Oh, actually gotta switch to the new ship now. There we go. And just start the engines. It is not wanting to start the engines. There we go. For some reason it wasn't wanting to stage. Well, there we go. I've activated the engines manually. Fair enough. Had to do that, but that was awkward. Okay, so throttle up. And away it goes. I don't care. So we'll just move it over there on the runway. And now what we have is, if I actually go back, just our container on the surface. And we have all the same information here about how large it is, the funds, etc. And also, of course, we see here what is in the kit. And its status currently idle. It's doing nothing. It's waiting to be built. So what we have over on the side of the runway is basically what you'd need. Now imagine that you are on the moon and this is the equivalent of your base. You have it all set up for mining, for fuel production, for, holding monopropellant ore, etc. And you've got your convertotrons to convert the ore into all those various things. And what you're going to do is dig up the ore, create all your different resources you need, liquid fuel, etc., and also smelt the ore into metal. And the metal is what you're actually going to use to build things. And once you have all those resources, for instance, you could use the Kerbal attachment system to attach this little mobile base up to our mobile workshop that we have here with all 8 Kerbals inside. And what this is going to do now is actually do the construction. Now, I've already set up this mobile workshop to have all the materials it needs. Remember, it does hold its own stash of metal, liquid fuel, oxidizer, etc. So the metal that it has here is what it's going to use to build that plane. And what's fun about this compared to extraplanetary launch pads, we don't have to be connected to that over there on the runway. We can wirelessly build our ship, which seems a little bit strange, but as long as you are within roughly 300 meters of the container, your workshop should be able to build it. And I actually should note here something I probably should have mentioned before, our little button here for ground construction. We click this and it shows the workshops which are available nearby you. So we have my little resource craft, which technically is a workshop because remember, we can build stuff from inside any container. This efficiency is 10.7 and the Mark 1 lander can. Or, of course, we stick with the mobile workshop, so you can go back and forth focusing on which one you want to use, and just whichever has the best efficiency really is the one you're going to choose. And this will show any of them that are, around, which is always a good thing. And then, once you have selected your workshop, you simply need to right-click on it and go to the construction window. Now, it detects that there is a DIY kit nearby. That's our Ares 3A over there, and it shows you what it's going to need to actually build it. It's going to need 249.7 metal and 142.7 I don't know what that stands for, but basically that amounts to the amount of work that's needed. Now, it's not gonna, at first I thought maybe it was hours, but no, it's not gonna take 142 hours, so I'm not entirely sure, but that's sort of the work requirement for it, and its current status as idle. And what we have over here is the deploy button, and what this will do is actually start unpacking that kit and preparing it for construction. And that's what we're going to do now. So let's deploy it and watch back there. You can see the kit expanding, and it's going to expand to the size of what it's going to build. So depending on the size of the craft, the rover, or even the base, I mean, it doesn't have to be a vessel that you're building. You could build a new section of your base with this. It'll expand to the size of the build. And now we have a new button here, the Add button, and this is going to add this to the construction queue for the mobile workshop if you are trying to build multiple things. So let's do that. Now you can see we have construction kit right here, and it's currently colored yellow because it's paused. And all we need to do is click it, and it begins construction. And right now we can see how much metals is left to build, or how much is required to build it left, the percentage of completion, what it's currently building, and the percentage of completion for that. So right now it's building the cockpit, and it's 1% done. It's showing the efficiency, and notice this, due to distance, we lose some efficiency. The closer you are to it, the more efficient it's going to be. And then here we have the time left to completion, which is 1 day and 17 minutes. Oh boy, that's a lot. Now from here we can hit stop to just completely stop it and head back to the queue, or we could click the construction kit to actually pause the construction if you so desired. But personally, we're just gonna, speed up time here and watch it go, and notice how it changes the pieces as it goes along building. So now it's taking care of the landing gear, the engine pre-cooler, the intake, the delta wing, and look at it go. It's building just one thing after another, and we are almost done with construction. Just an hour of time left, and wait for it. Ah, beautiful. Oh, thank God it didn't go to nighttime. It's close to nighttime, but not quite. Now you'll notice our mobile workshop UI has changed again, and it's now showing our Ares 3A has been constructed, but it's still in the box. That's because we haven't launched it yet, and you don't really want to launch it, typically, until you've fueled it and crewed it. So for the resources, if we click this, we can transfer resources from the mobile workshop to our ship. Now, it already has electrical charge, it already grabbed that automatically, but we'll send the liquid fuel and we'll hit transfer, and notice down here, the 583, when we hit transfer, oh, that goes down to 343, but our plane is now fueled. The next button we have is crew, and if we click that, it'll grab from the crew list inside the mobile workshop. And of course, remember, if you are connected to a base through the Kerbal attachment system / Kerbal inventory system, or you just docked with it, the resources and the personnel will also be shared from the rest of the base too. But for right now, we're just getting the list of people from our workshop itself. And we'll grab Jebediah Kerbin, and you just close that. And now it's ready to launch. So we click this, and poof, our UI goes away and we get sent over to the ship. Now that all happened automatically. I did not actually choose to change over to this ship. That's what it does. Once you build, all the little instruments, etc., go away for a second. It goes poof. And now we have a fully functioning airplane that we can fly. And let's just take this thing off momentarily. Oh, actually, you know what? We'll just move it here and then brake. There we go, because I don't really need to be flying this thing. There we go. Just to show that it did work, we have a functioning plane. The the different controls work. Everything is moving. The engine functions, and we of course have Jebediah on the inside, willing and ready to go. And that is how this mod works. It's pretty simple. So a few big differences between this and extraplanetary launch pads. You know, you've got metal instead of rocket parts for your final construction material, which does take one thing out of the resource chain. You do have to have the DIY kit in place to actually build the thing. And of course, as I said, within 300 meters of a workshop. You have to have engineers in here to build stuff, and the efficiency is how things are going to go. And I actually should mention, the star rating of your engineers matters. If they're 5-star engineers, every so often, they're going to work spontaneous miracles, is what the mod page says. And so yeah, that'll determine also the efficiency of things, the distance to workshop, all sorts of different things go into how this all works, and I really do like it. It's a simple system, but also has some complexity to it, mainly in the need to have the DIY kit go to where you need it to be. But other than that, it's pretty familiar if you have used the extraplanetary launch pad. And yeah, so that is pretty much it for ground construction. If you'd like to check this mod out for yourself, and I would definitely say to go and do it, you can take a look at the link in the description as always. And that is going to be it for this video today. I hope you all have enjoyed. And of course, you do come back for the next, but until that time, thank you for watching, my friends, and as always, have a good one. Now I'm going to go and fly this plane we just built for a little bit. Later, folks.